You are welcome. Hello. Nice to see you, even though I can't see you physically, but I know you're there listening to me. And it's nice to know that God has been good to us. We're enjoying his mercies. And we are here again to listen to a very special person who was here the last time, Mr. Ayotunde Nurain. And he has Abudu, and he gave us some tips about mortgages. Like I said, he's not an advisor, he's just an educator, educating us on financial issues. So today I will bring him on the screen again. It's more about asking questions and answers. So we've got a few questions people have asked, and thank you for asking those questions, because without it, hey, we won't be here doing the series. But there's some questions that need to be answered. Some people have written on in the comment of the first part, and this is the second part where you're free to ask questions now while we're talking. Later, when you've listened to this video, or after so many after reviewing the first one, whatever it is. Yeah, you're welcome, Speaking Grace TV. Nice to see you here. Thank you for always being supportive. I appreciate God for your lives. Thank you very much for being here with us. It's time to ask questions about buying a home in the UK. So Mr. Abudu is here again to answer the questions, and we have a couple of questions. And I appreciate you all for coming to view, to like, to share, to comment, to subscribe. There's no better joy than being supported by friends and family and even strangers. Thank you very much. Now, without going into much detail, I will call on the screen Mr. Abdu again. You are welcome, sir.
Hello. Hello, Bumi. Good evening, everyone. It's nice to be back again. I did enjoy the last session, although it's not interactive. I enjoy talking. Money matter is my favorite topic, but yes.
Yeah, and it was so good that I think that talk actually connected you to an old secondary school friend who saw you and said, "Oh, do you know this person?" That's the beauty actually of doing these talks, because you begin to say, Grace, Speaking Grace TV is saying, "Welcome, sir."
Welcome, Grace TV.
So you begin to see some people you've lost touch with will just see you somewhere on someone else's status and say, "Oh, I know this person. We went to the same secondary school." So it was nice, having that kind of interaction.
Yes, it was. I'm famous now. I'm becoming famous due to being on TV.
Yeah, because you're touching lives. If you're touching lives, people will know you. So thank you for always being here to
Thank you.
Give your I don't want to say give your advice, but give your
I did try
your skills.
Thank you, Bumi. Yeah, I did try to explain, because with finance is a very delicate matter. You have to be advised, you have to qualify it. I'm not here to give advice like Bumi has just explained. I'm just here to give and to educate, for people to educate ourselves. But it's enough that you need to act on. So that is the whole idea about what I'm doing today, based on my own experience and my knowledge. I work in the industry, but it's just purely education. If you do need financial advice, you need to be speaking to a financial advisor or a mortgage advisor who will give you specific advice based on your individual circumstances.
Okay, so we've all heard that. Thank you. We all need to speak to those who have been qualified to give advice on financial matters. But regarding education, yes, we are privileged to have you on a platter of gold speaking to us about mortgages. Now, the first question is, how old can you be to start thinking or making plans to buy a home?
Okay, thank you. The general guide, as you might already know, is 18. Right from age 18, you can start. To take a mortgage out, you have to be 18. Now, the issue is this: minors, like somebody below 18, you can have their name as an owner on a property, but it has to be held in trust, which means, like maybe your parent will be the one actually holding the property in trust. So it's your property. Your name can be mentioned, but generally as a guide, if you're looking to buy a house, and I'm assuming people will be looking to buy a house with a mortgage, then definitely you have to be at least 18 years old.
Ah, okay. Great stuff. So, you mentioned something about being in an estate. What does that really mean to people who think, oh, actually, that means I can start thinking of my underaged child
Yeah,
to on a
okay. So it
mortgage?
means in trust is that you are, when you're in trust, it means you're holding something on behalf of someone. It's just a legal term. So it's like some people, for example, might buy something in the name of their children. Like, okay, I could buy a house in the name of my children. That's if they're buying cash or whatever. It's not, but let's say they buy a house in the name of, but that child cannot officially own the property in their own right, but the parent is actually holding it in trust for them. So in the future, once they're of age, then there might be things about, okay, once you reach a certain age, then you can fully be in control of that asset. But sometimes what I'm saying is because some people might say, okay, I'm buying this in the name of my child, I'm buying in the name of this child. But generally, yes, the child cannot officially own that asset single-handedly. The adult is holding that property in trust, on their behalf. Really, when somebody is held in trust, it's being held on your behalf,
Yeah.
and that
Yeah.
is it.
Yeah. So that actually takes me to the way United Kingdom works, because I've heard people say, "Oh, you can't transfer your house to a child." How true is that? Can
Well,
you, and if
there's some legal. I
what
won't
you
go down because a lot of things is kind of legal stuff, and I have to say I'm not a legal expert,
okay.
but I do know that I've heard of people who do trust. That is I have to go. I won't go into detail.
Okay.
It's a very big area,
Complex.
complex area of trust. But
Okay.
yes, but sometimes people put things in trust. For example, it's people might say, okay, my child. I've seen scenarios where somebody might say, okay, my property, I'm putting in trust in the name of my child. So that parent can continue to benefit from the use of that house, but actually, technically, the house is in the name of the child, but in trust. So it's one that the child is benefiting, is a beneficiary, but technically it's in somebody else, somebody else is holding that property, but the child is going to benefit from it. So, but I don't know. I don't, like I said, I'm not a legal expert. So
Okay.
I
Yeah.
rather
Delving.
not go down the route. But
Okay.
if anybody needs to know further about that, then maybe, we could always
Consult you.
do a bit further because trust is a very big issue. But
Please.
yes, people buy their own property and they leave it for their children in trust. Like, for example, they might say, okay, I'm going to give this like a gift. I'm giving this to my child, and what happens is that my child will benefit from it, and in the
Yeah.
future or whatever. Sometimes people do that even before they pass away, because a lot of things around trust is mainly for people's knowledge around, after they've passed away. That I
Yeah.
want to give this to my child, that when I pass away is in trust. And trust is
Mm.
another reason why people put things in trust is for tax purposes as well. Because when you
Okay.
put things in trust, there's some
Yes.
tax, you can save money on tax, on inheritance tax. But sometimes you can actually give the child something even whilst you're still alive. So that's why you put things in trust. But it's a very big area, and I won't want to give any legal advice because I'm not a legal expert in that matter.
Okay.
But
But
I'm just saying it's possible. It's possible.
yes. Okay. So if anyone is listening and you need advice, well, not advice. I always keep saying that word advice. But if you need more education on
Yeah.
this aspect of trusts and
Yeah.
estates,
Yeah.
please contact Mr. Ayotunde Nurain Abudu. He would point you in the right direction.
Yes.
Yes, we'll point you in the right direction. Thank you very much. Now, the second question is, can a couple combine their income to buy? And whose credit will be used in that case? We talked about credit rating
Yeah.
and talked about last time we said if there's a partner, husband and wife. Well, we talked about income from people who are living together who want to buy a house, maybe friends or partners, whatever it is, they can combine and buy. And someone is asking, but can a couple, like the husband and wife, combine their income to buy, and whose credit will be used in that case? If you want to throw more light on that, please.
Yeah, thanks for that question. Yeah, I actually touched on it during the last session. Yeah, actually, yes, that's true. Yeah, a couple can buy a house together and they can combine their income together, but both of their credit would be used. So, for example, if one person has a bad, so I've seen different scenarios where, depending on the credit, sometimes there have been cases, depending on the lender. I guess people might ask that question. So normally they will look at both. If it's a couple who are buying together, the lender will look at both of them. They won't just look at, because they're both going to be on the mortgage. So they will look at them both. But there have been cases sometimes where one person might have issues with their credit, but the other person, based on them having a better credit rating, might end up, helping them with the mortgage. So the fact that one person has bad credit and the other person hasn't, and they're looking at both, doesn't deter them from taking the mortgage. But it depends on how bad the credit is from one person to the other. But generally, they will still look at both parties.
Oh, okay, great. They'll look at both parties. Thank you very
Yes.
much. Now, you are welcome to this. I'm welcoming Speaking Grace TV. You're welcome, and if anyone is listening at the moment, we really appreciate you coming on this video, on this broadcast, to listen to what we have to say. And if you've got any questions, please feel free to write it in the chat below. All right, thank you very much. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and do all of that with the video. It's left to you. Now, the next question: what are the procedures for buy to let? What are the procedures?
Buy to let, in a way, when we say the procedure, it's not that different from buy to let is not that different from buying a residential house to live in terms of the procedures. It's the same procedures. You find a property, you get you start by looking on the market, you look at the property. You have to do more research when it's buy to let, because one, you're not going to be living in the property yourself. So what you need to know is the rent, how much rent can you get in that area, because you want to be making sure that when you do take out the mortgage, because you're going to be you want to make money from the purchase. So you want to make sure that whatever your mortgage is, you get as a mortgage payment will be more. Sorry, whatever you get as your rent, there'll be enough profit compared to the mortgage. So it's the same process. You find the property, you go to the agent, you start looking around, you go on Rightmove or whatever, Zoopla, you find the property. Once you find the property, you would then the next step would be you put in an offer for the property. So it's similar to what you do with the one you're buying, you're living in. You put in an offer. Once your offer is accepted, there then will be a memorandum of sale. The agents will draw that up between you and the person who's selling. At that point, you will need a solicitor, because on the memorandum of sale, they will have a solicitor. Now, before we get to the memorandum of sale, this memorandum of sale means that's the official saying we want to sell you this property. That is the official document where they say, I'm selling you this property. But at that stage, sometimes before we get to the memorandum of sale, it's similar to the residential. The estate agent might want to see some evidence that you can afford the property. So sometimes what they will ask is they want to see a decision in principle. That means, like that first stage, when you speak to a lender, when they check all your credit, they run a credit check on you, they do all the initial checks to say, okay, we think we might be able to get a mortgage. So they give you a decision. So sometimes the agent who wants to sell you the house wants to see that you've got that. A lender has said kind of yes to you, and also they want to make sure that you have a deposit. So they want to make sure you have enough funds as deposit, because that with buy to let, generally is that you'll be putting down 25% and the lender will give you 75%. So they want to make sure you have the 25%, your own bit, and they want to make sure you have a decision in principle for the 75. So that is it. So once that is confirmed, the decision in principle, they've seen you've got all that, they'll drop the memorandum of sale, and then that's where the whole property buying process begins. And with that, The solicitor will start their own work. They carry out all their checks. So the solicitor is doing their own work, and then your mortgage company, your mortgage broker or bank will start doing their own check. They will do all the checks, do the mortgage application. They will check all the necessary things. They will arrange for the property to be valued. And once they're happy with that, if there's no issue with that, they will then issue a mortgage offer. It's similar to if you're buying a house in your own name as a residential property. And that will be done. Then, but what will happen, what is slightly different as well, is that don't forget is that they're not just looking at, they'll be looking at the rent as well. They want to see. So sometimes when you're buying a buy-to-let property, you might be buying it vacant, where there's no one living there. Sometimes, because I do this, because I do buy properties on behalf of myself and others. And sometimes you buy a property with tenants in situ, which means there are tenants who are already living there. You're buying the property with the tenants in there. So that one, there will be some checks. They want to make sure that the tenants who are there, they have the tenancy agreement, they're paying their rent on time. They've got all the necessary paperwork in relation to that tenancy, because you're going to be taking over the tenancy. Because sometimes what's happened lately with buy-to-let is this. So a lot of landlords, because of COVID, I find hard they want to sell their house, but it's very hard for them to get the tenant. So what they want to do is they might want to evict the tenant first and then sell the house. But because of COVID and the process of going to court and everything, a lot of those landlords are selling the properties with the tenants in situ, which means the tenants are living there. So you effectively will take over the tenant. It becomes your own tenant. You might either then drop a new tenancy. So all those checks will be carried out by both the lender. They will check, they will ask a lot of questions they want from you. They want to make sure all the things are in place. The solicitor will also check with the seller's solicitor to make sure all that is in place. So what everything goes through, you exchange contracts, and then that is it. So it's not far off from buying as a residential property in terms of buy-to-let. The process is similar.
Okay, great. So the process is similar. Yeah, it's just you do more checks,
Exactly.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I hope that question has been answered to your satisfaction. Thank you very much, His Word, for coming on the show. Thank you. His
Welcome.
Speaking Grace, thank you very much for being here to support. May the Lord support you on all sides too, in the name of Jesus. Now we are going into the fourth question, and that is, would you go for a new build or old? Why does it take a while for the value of new build to increase? That's a 2-in-1 question. If you could please answer that.
Okay, that's a very interesting question. Very, very interesting. There's a loaded question. Okay, I'll tell you. Okay, so I think it's a matter of preference. I have to be honest with you. Whether you're buying a new build or old, it's a matter of preference. Personally, I've never bought a new build property before. Although there's a part of me that I think maybe my next purchase might be a new build. But I've never bought a new build. I haven't got anything against new build, to be fair. It's just that I've never bought one before. So all the houses I've ever bought, either to live in or for investment, have always been old properties. So it depends on you. Some people like to buy a property brand new where nobody's ever lived in there. Some people prefer old. Some people have this idea that, those old properties are solid. They're more that the new build properties nowadays, they're not as solid or strong as the new as the old ones. People have different ideas. Some people like the feel of new houses, that new feel, and a lot of them are more energy efficient. So it depends. It's all relative. It depends. I don't have a preference for new build or personally for old build, but it depends. Now, let me I have a feeling where that question is coming from, because at the back of my mind, most people who are first-time buyers nowadays who are looking to buy will probably be accessing things like Help to Buy. And most of this Help to Buy is new build. As you know, Help to Buy is new build properties. And that's what most first-time buyers will be looking at because of affordability. So for that reason, if that is what is available to you because of your income or for any reason, then you might have to go for a new build property. That's it. But if you can afford an old property as well, there's nothing wrong in doing that. I believe people have different ideas, but like I said, it's personal preferences. Now, that question about why does it take a while, that too is not always necessarily true. I have to be honest with you, because the general idea is that it takes a while for a new build to go, but that's not true. It depends on the area. depends on the kind of property, it depends on so many factors. And at that point in time, there have been some areas where actually old properties are even more valuable than new build. It depends on what side of town. There have been areas where, for example, if there is, and I think it's mainly due to demand and supply. For example, if you have an area where there's so many new builds, they've just gone and built a lot of new build properties, then you never know. The price might not rise as much as the old build because you don't know the preferences. Also, but having said that, there's what we call a new build premium. So in general, when you're buying a new build, there's always a premium attached. So the idea is that there's a premium, which means new build tends to be more expensive than old build because of this premium. That premium is around the idea that somebody's prepared to pay more for a house that nobody has ever lived in before. Because you're buying a house, brand new, So that is the idea.
Chassis.
So brand new. So so people like that. So there's a premium attached to that. You're buying a house no one has ever lived in, and that is the point. Also, some of these new developments are more energy efficient because you can see they're warmer. That is the general thing I feel. New houses are warmer than old properties and stuff like that. But then also the other reason why new build might also cost more is because of land. Land is one of the sole determining factor in terms of how the cost of a property. Because, for example, what is going to take you to build a house in one part of London is not different from what will take you to build a house in another part of London. What will make the price, I'm just using London as an example, what will make the price differ or even Manchester or whatever, it's because of the price of land. And land obviously is more expensive. In the UK, land is scarce. In the UK, we have issues around brown belt, green belt, like there's land where you can't build on. We're an island. Because we are an island, there's limited space. And because there's limited, and within that limited space, there are places you can't build on. You can't build on green line, on green belt. Green belt is places that the government, for vegetation, for green, greenery or whatever. So you can't build on that. Brown sites are the ones maybe you can build on. So there's a limit in terms of what you can build on. And for the environment and for different reasons, and also planning restrictions, the council might limit who can build where and when and stuff. So because of that, it means new builds end up being more expensive sometimes because there are fewer properties to build. But with the help to buy, that might change things because there's a lot of help to buy development springing up left, right, and center.
Okay.
So all I'm trying to say is that if you are going to buy, don't there's not necessarily true that the new big takes a time to increase. It depends. It depends on the area. And sometimes there have been places where, new bid has actually gone up quickly in price. I also want to touch on one thing as well. One advantage of new build is this. I don't know if people know that. You've heard the term off plan. When you're buying a property off plan.
Okay.
Have you heard that? Off plan is, before a property is built. So, for example, when they started constructing, like they started to construct, when they started to construct a property, they're laying the foundation, they're building. Yes. You then express an interest. Because at that point, the value, let's say at that point, the property as they are building, there's a value. You're buying it for a certain price. I bet you by the time that house it might take another 2 years or whatever before the property is built. Maybe it's a large development. By the time that large development has been finished built, the property the value is actually more higher than let me give an example. So when you were buying that house, when it was being built, maybe you bought it for maybe 200K. You paid you purchased it for 200K. So the idea is that by the time they finish building, you're going to buy it for 200K. But one thing to tell you is that by the time the property is actually bought, is actually finished building, that house might be worth 220.
Okay.
So sometimes that's why some people, this used to be in the past, this used to be a big thing. Actually, people used to do that a lot. People will go and pay for property once it's being built, but they have no intention of they're just waiting for it to, once it's finished built, they will then sell off the profit. So there's so many things involved, in new development. So like I'm trying to explain is that it doesn't necessarily matter that value of new build will take a while to increase. It depends on the circumstances, and there's different scenarios. It depends on where part of the country, it depends on what is going on there, it depends on the time of the market, it depends where the market is, it depends on what kind of scheme, it depends on different factors. But
Sure.
so it's on a case-by-case basis. That is my view on that.
Thank you. Thank you very much for throwing more light on that. There's a question from his word. It says, what checks should someone do to make sure that a new build is well built apart from what is on the paper? So apart from the paperwork, what other checks would you need to put in place to make sure that actually what they say is on paper is actually what it's, what you see is what you get, or what was on paper is what you get?
Well, that's a very difficult one, because obviously I'm not a building expert, but I can only tell you from my own experience of, like I said, I've never bought a new build before. I won't lie to you, but new build tend to come with a guarantee. They always come with a guarantee. So you have like it used to be the NHBC. I'm not sure if that's still the one. That's the National Housing Building Federal, thing. So there used to be a guarantee. So when you buy a new build property, it comes with an insurance. It comes with a guarantee that this house is built up to. Because that's the main thing I would say to you. If you're buying a new build, make sure that it comes with, I'm not sure what they're called now, because it used to be NHBC. I don't know, maybe it's changed, but that's kind of guarantee. Each government comes with some kind of guarantee that the house has been built to a certain standard, and that's you have to make sure it's got that. It comes with that guarantee, and just think what guarantee does it come with in terms of then also, and that is like, and also with that, in that because it comes with that guarantee, there's like an insurance that is attached to it, like an insurance certificate that says that within the next 10 years that house is insured under that. So sometimes if in the first year certain things are wrong with the house, the developer has to put it right. I think there's what we call a defect period, defect NHBC. Yeah. So this is it. Yeah, build mark. That's what it's called. So yeah, thanks for sharing that, Bumi. So you need to make sure that a property that is being built fresh has this guarantee. Once it has this guarantee, to a large extent, you are covered, because what it means is that if anything goes wrong with that property, you are insured. That I know, and that's the only bit I can advise on. In terms of other things, legally, you expect that when you're buying a new property, you have your solicitors who are there to protect you. They're doing all the necessary checks. The surveyors, the solicitors, they are doing all the work on your behalf, and they're there to make sure that everything is in order. But in addition to that, the NHBC is what you have to make sure is, you've got that for that property. So it comes with a 10-year warranty.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. Just looking at our time, we were half an hour into the program. Thank you very much for all those who are watching, for those who have commented, who have sent messages. I really appreciate that. Yes, his word says, okay, great. So he's appreciating what you've said. Thank you, Speaking Grace. Thank you, his word, for making comments on the chat. Now, next question is the government's 40% of help to buy subtracted from the property price when banks are calculating loan, or is that an afterthought? I think the person asking this question knows what he's saying. And does that question make sense?
Okay, I think I understand what the person is trying to ask. So what the person wants to know is the 40% of help to buy shared from the property price? Yes. So what it means is that if you're buying a property, let's use some figures. Let's say the property is 200K. You get the loan, the help to buy loan for 40% of that. So 40% of 200K is how much? I think it's 80. So 80. So what will happen is, the help to buy will be 80 grand. You would then have to let me work out those figures. So okay. So that's if the house. So what it means that if the house is 200,000, the help to buy 40% help to buy will be 80,000, which is 40% of 200K. The 5% you will have to put down will be 10,000, and then you have to get a mortgage for 110,000, which is 55% of the value. So yes, the question is yes. So yes, so what will happen is they will take out your deposit, they will take out the help to buy loan, and then whatever is left is then what you get from the bank as a mortgage. So which is 55% of the value of the purchase price, or 55% of the purchase price. I don't know
Okay.
if yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
I think it's what said thank you. So I believe, maybe I've answered that question.
Yeah. Actually, that was the last
The previous question, okay,
personal ask.
sorry.
Yes, for the
Yeah,
last
but
one.
I understand. Yeah, so that was what the question, person who asked that question, I believe I've answered it. Yeah, about 40%. Yeah, so the 40%, yes, is deducted, and then whatever is left, and then they will also deduct your own deposit 5%, and then whatever is left is what you would then have to get as loan from the bank.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Great. Thank you.
that's the answer. Yeah.
Now, the final question, if we don't have any other question coming from the audience, is freehold or leasehold when considering London? What would you educate us
How
on?
will I educate? Yeah, I know you were going to use the word
I'm always trying to avoid that word advice so that we don't get
I'm
into trouble there.
expecting it. But yeah, but it's true because we use that word so often.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I like that question. It's a loaded question. I'll tell you why. Because, okay, let me tell you, I'll tell you my own preference.
Okay.
Or in general, as a rule, freehold is always best in any case. Because I don't know, maybe I might want to educate people about freehold because we assume
Exactly.
everybody
Because
knows
some
what
will be like,
freehold or
what's all
leasehold.
that? What's free? What's
People,
lease?
yeah,
What's
we need to educate people what freehold or
yes.
leasehold means.
Yes.
Now, freehold means you own the land as well as the property. You own the land as well as the building on it. But with leasehold, you don't actually own the land. You only have a lease on the property. So, for example, most times, but as a guard, most times lease. So with the lease, you are a leasee. You have somebody who's the leaseor, and that leaseor is a freeholder. So what happens is this. So let's say you buy a flat, for example. A flat, if you were to buy a flat in a block of flats, what it means that somebody will be the freeholder. Somebody owns the land on which that property has been built. You own the flat, but somebody actually owns the land. The person who owns the land is the freeholder. You are a leaseholder. So you would then be, so it means the person who owns that land on what the property has been built has leased the land, leased the land to you to build on. So that's when they say you have a leasehold, maybe it's 125 years, it's 999 years, and stuff like that. And then you have to be paying what we call ground rent to that person every year. And in some cases, if it's a block of flats and they've got work doing in the place, then you might have to be paying them service charge as well. So that's the difference between freehold. So as a guide, in most, not all the times, but in most times, what is freehold is always tends to be, a house, like a house, and leasehold is that. But there are times where a house could also be a leasehold. Depends on what part. It's very rare, but some parts of the world, of the country, yes, that is possible. So yeah. Now, the question on whether,
Yeah, I'm with you.
okay, the question on whether freehold or leasehold, as a guide, based on what I've just explained, you think it's a no-brainer that you prefer to have a freehold, because that means you own the land, you don't have to pay service charge, you don't have to pay ground rent to anybody, you actually own the house and you own the land, and you can do whatever you like. But if you're a leaseholder, you have to get permission from the freeholder if you live in a flat. So it's always, so I guess it's best to be a freeholder than be a leaseholder. Now, London, it doesn't matter. What would make you take out a lease in London is because of the price of the property. Because of house prices in London are quite high. Affordability is the guide. When I did the last session, I was talking about a lot about affordability. It's what you can afford. You might end up being in a position that you can actually just afford a flat or a leasehold, which most time will be a flat, that you can't afford a house. So that's why you might want to go for a lease or a leaseholder or a leasehold rather than go for a freehold. Because ideally you want to buy a house. But because you're not in that position, you end up having to, thank Boom, because that's explaining everything that I've just said. So So you might not be in a position to be able to afford a freehold. So that's why you end up going for a leasehold. But ideally, it will always be best to go for a freehold. But affordability will also play a part in that. What I will say at this point is this: when there is a freehold, a lease, it's always ideal. It's nice to own your own house, because I believe it's better. I'm not giving advice. I'm just saying what my preference is. I think it's better for someone to own their house than to rent. I guess that is the general feeling. So if in the end you rather be a leaseholder than be someone who's renting a property. So if leasehold is the only option for you to get on the property ladder, you must start off by being a leaseholder and then go from there, from buying your own, then buying your own house. So some people might go from, because some people start from owning a flat and then being a leaseholder, and then later on in the future, once they've earned enough money or they're in a better position, they can end up owning a house. So that's what I'm trying to say, is that it depends. Ideally, you want to be a freeholder, but you might end up having to be taking out a leasehold because you might not be able to afford, because owning a house is much expensive than owning a flat. But having said that, it's still better. Owning a flat is still better than renting, And so that is it. So affordability is what plays the part. Also, just to add something on top of what I've just said, sometimes you might also have a share of a freehold. What that means is that, let's say you have a block of flats. It means you are part freeholder as well. You're a leasehold, but you also own part of the freehold as well. Which means that, in one of the examples I was giving, I said maybe one person owns the freehold. But there are cases where you all together, there have been cases where, I'll give an example. I have a property I bought on behalf of a friend recently where there was a block of 2 flats. It was just 2 flats in the block. So what the person who owned my friend was buying the top flat. The person who owned the property had the lower flat, and he was selling the top flat. So he sold it with his share of freehold, which means my friend now jointly owns the freehold with the person who owns. So they both own the freehold together. It means he won't have to pay service charge to that person. It means they both own the freehold. They split everything. The other thing about leasehold and freehold is this, which I didn't mention. When you have a leasehold, it means that the freeholder is responsible for certain things. That's why there's service charge, because the freeholder is responsible for insuring the building. He's also in charge of doing major repairs to the building. So if there's anything with the roof of the building or anything like that in the building itself, it's down to the freeholder to pay for that. And that's why you pay service charge. So the service charge you pay to the freeholder is then used to carry out repairs on the building. That's what happens. But if you have a share of a freehold, it means you and the other party are jointly responsible, for everything. So that is it. So I won't go into much detail than that, but so that is it in a nutshell.
Okay. There's a final question here, but before I say it, I will just this is on a lighter note now.
Yeah.
Could there be a situation where someone will say, come and carry your house away from my land? I want my land back. I want my thing back.
No.
Don't carry this thing, come what?
No. This is a country. This is a country with laws. So, but Bomi, you've caught on a very good point, though, because what happened is, when you have a lease for a certain number of years. This is what I think also need to tell you. I won't scare people. If you have a lease, what will happen is, if that lease comes to an end, because that's another question people might want to ask. So, what if I have a lease for 100 years? After the end of 100, what happens? So what happens is that when you own a lease, part of the lease means you can extend the lease. There will be something saying you are allowed to extend the lease. Which means you are allowed to extend the lease. Sorry, I just need my. Actually, I thought my laptop was plugged in, but it's not actually plugged in. Okay. Sorry, just 1 minute.
All right.
Because I don't want to go offline. I want to go offline whilst I'm talking to you. Okay, it's fine. Okay. So what happens is that, let's say you have a lease for 60 years. Obviously, when the 60 years, that's if you are still alive. When that 60 years comes to an end, if you don't extend it, so you are allowed to extend. there's something in the contract that says you can extend. You can keep extending. But each time you extend, you have to pay a lot of money to the freeholder to extend. So that is what happens with leaseholds. Now, if you don't extend and the whole thing comes to the end, your property goes to that person.
Really?
Yeah.
Whoa.
The whole building goes to the owner of the land.
Hi. Okay.
It means your flat, you don't own your flat. It goes, the person who owns the land owns your flat.
Okay. Assuming you have like 10 flats up there and maybe 5 people have paid, 5 people haven't paid. What happens?
Haven't
At
paid
least,
in what sense?
I mean, haven't, well, paid the leasehold. The leasehold expires and there are about 10 flats in the
That means
building.
you don't own, you've paid, whoever has paid, they still own their flat. The person
Oh,
who,
okay.
that freeholder will own their own, the
Oh,
ones
will
who
own
have to
their
pay.
own property.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Because because no, you're right. I get what you said. Even individual people have their own lease. You don't have a lease together. You all have your individual lease.
Okay.
You all have your individual leases. So if you have 10 flats, it means each flat have their own lease.
Oh,
It means that, and that means there's more money for the person who owns the freehold, because each time the people want to extend, they have to pay money, and each of them are paying service charges individually. So
yeah,
you will deal with them separately,
separately.
individually. So what will happen is, if flat A doesn't extend the lease and the lease runs to an end, the freeholder he owns flat A. He ends up going flat A. In fact, there are people who actually go around buying all this. They buy freehold. They go around buying freehold to land. It's a business on its own. People
Oh,
actually buy freehold because sometimes people might just invest. I'll just get the freehold of that block of 10 flats. If you go on auction websites, you see they're selling freehold. They're not selling the land. They're not selling the property. They're actually selling the freehold to that land. So people actually invest in it because you can get income from that.
yeah.
People have to pay you ground rent, you have to pay service charge, and if they want to extend their lease, they'll have to pay you to extend their lease.
Wow. Thank you. That's another way. That's another thing to look at.
Yeah.
Oh,
Another business investment for you.
another business. Finally, because of our time, his word is asking, what of a situation where you buy a land in an estate? Will that be in between? And is that good in terms of you owning the land? I'm trying to
I need to
understand the
understand that. Would
question.
that be in between? That is the in between I don't understand.
Okay. Maybe he'll put more clarification on that. What
If
of
you
a
can let
situation
us know what we mean.
I think maybe it's something we've just touched on. I know that I kind of digress when I asked that question. Well, we're talking of freehold
Okay,
and
freehold.
leasehold.
Okay, if you buy
Freehold
land,
and
okay.
leasehold.
No, it's separate. So if you buy land on an estate, okay, I get what you mean. So if you buy land, it depends on the terms of in an estate. Yes, I don't think this is the thing. It depends because sometimes you might buy land on an estate, but you're actually a freeholder. You actually own the freehold to that land in that estate, but you
Okay.
might have to pay service charge. As you might have to pay service because that's the difference. I guess that's where his word is going. I guess because you might buy land in an estate, but it doesn't mean you might still have the freehold to your property in that estate. It's just that as living on that estate, as having land on that estate, you might have to be paying service charge. For example, it's similar to back home. Like if you're on an estate, for cleaning, for gardening, for certain things, you might have to pay service charge. But also, though, I want to qualify it as well. Sometimes there's some lands in an estate that might not be a freehold. It could be leasehold as well. There have been cases like that. I remember there was a story years ago that when people up north, mainly up north, a lot of those developers, when they were building, this is what they did, which was not very good. When they were selling houses to people, they were not selling those houses to people they were selling houses on estates to people as leasehold houses. So you were buying a house, but that house you don't own the freehold. You're leasehold. So it means you have to be paying service charge and ground rent. And it was a lot of those developers, some new developments were built like that. And those who were charging people quite a lot of money. So that is, so I would say when you're buying anything in this country, that's what the solicitors are there for. They
Okay.
need to check everything out properly. But
Mm.
in general, if you're buying a land on an estate, I will assume you'll be buying it as a freehold, you know.
Mm.
And it's good owning that land. It's always good owning land anyway. Land,
Okay.
but it depends on where you want to buy the land. But yeah, owning a land on an estate, yeah, definitely you're likely to be a freeholder. But you have to check because you don't want to, because you have to care. That's what the solicitor is there to check, to make sure that the land you're being sold, you have freehold title to that land, not leasehold title, because it's also possible for you to be sold land in an estate and where you're just a leaseholder, not a freeholder.
Oh, okay. So thank you very much. Thank you very much. I can see a sister here, Sister Gladys
Good,
Onoive. You are welcome.
good
His
evening.
word, you are welcome. Speaking Grace TV, you are welcome. You are welcome. And those who are watching who haven't written in the comments, you are welcome as well. Just remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Share with someone. Someone needs this information. I tell you, they might not be available here now, but if you can share the link to them, with them, they will be able to, share with other people who would need to know, because information is power. Um, his word says, sorry for not asking the question correctly. And yes, that is okay. That was his question. So yeah, thank you very much, his word.
Yeah.
Now, finally, I just want to, if you've got comments, please, if you've got questions, if you're here, please write in the comment section. We have about 12 more minutes to leave the broadcast. Now, my final question, well, I said a final question before, but
No, feel
final.
free. As far as possible. Within the 12 minutes, I can ask you a lot of final questions.
Yeah, we always say finally and finally and finally again. Okay. So actually, some people might have the opportunity. Maybe they're
You're
cancelled.
welcome,
Or,
his word. Sorry, I'm
yeah.
just saying welcome to him.
Okay. Yeah. There could be some people who have the right to buy. Maybe
Yeah.
they've lived in their council flat for years and they've got a
Yeah.
right to buy. What
Yeah.
would you educate them? I don't want to say advise them
Right.
now. What would you
I like
educate them to do?
that. That's a very good question, Bumi. I actually had years ago, I did that. I was once one of those people with right to buy, and I took advantage of it. And it's where I started my property journey from. So definitely, I will always recommend. Now, the only challenge for right to buy at the moment is the value. I'll give an example. Let me give you a very easy scenario, but it depends on what part of the country. If it's in London, London is a big, big issue in the next. I've seen some cases where people, with right to buy in London, you get a very big discount. So it means, the council, you have this property, the council wants to sell the property to you under right to buy. You have up to 100 and something, I think it's 104. I don't know, at the figure from 102,000 discount on the value of the property. So they will deduct that from the purchase price and they'll deduct that from the value. And then what you get is what you have to buy it for. The only problem is in parts of London, house prices are so high. So example, I've seen cases where a house in somewhere like Hackney, they will say the property is 500,000, and then they will give you 100K, which means you have to get a mortgage for 400,000. You're a first-time buyer. You might not even be able to afford it. I know of a family who still are kind of stuck in that kind of position. They've lived in their house for so many years, but unfortunately, because house prices have been going up in London, it's got to a point where even when they get the 100K discount, which is quite a lot, because of the value of that property, they are not able to afford. But all I'm saying is this: so if you are able to afford your right to buy, you should go for it. If you have the right to buy, you should go for it, because you're getting a property. Another thing people need to understand with right to buy is this: the right to buy comes, to me, this is the way I look at it. It comes with two discounts. Actually, there's more than one discount. Most times when you're doing the right to buy, the council will value it at a certain price, but sometimes that value the council gives is actually lower than the market, on the market. That if you want to sell that same property on the open market, it might actually be more than that. So you get a kind of, so the council say as a certain discount, and then on top of that, you then get the 100K or whatever discount. I know outside London it's much lower, it's not 100K, I think it's 70,000 or there, but I can't remember from top of my head. But so you get a discount. So that's why it's always best to do your right to buy. But I guess the challenge for a lot of people would be affordability. So if you, let's say you have the right to buy, if you have children, if you are not able, if you have children who are working, then I think, and you can't afford to buy it by yourself, excuse me, you can actually get other family members or household to join you on the application in order to get the right to buy. But all I'm trying to say is that if you have this chance, if you get the right to buy, you should always, because if you think about it, you don't want to be paying rent all your life. It's a very, very good opportunity. The council is selling the property for you at a discount, at a massive discount, and on top of that, you own your property. But the problem, I guess, with most people, especially in London, is people have the right to buy, but they cannot afford to buy their property because of house prices. So that's the only thing. But so that would be my own view on that.
Okay. I know I've said final question, but I think
No,
we've got
go ahead.
we've got a few more.
We still have time for more final questions.
Actually, more questions are coming up, so we might have to extend it because this is the whole
Okay.
point of doing this.
No, it's all right. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's to answer
People can
people's.
ask as many final questions as possible.
Okay, I'll put my own final one towards the end. But there's a
Okay.
question. Okay, before I ask Sister Gladys's question, what is the maximum number of people that can apply together to buy a home?
That's a very good question, Sister Gladys. I don't know if it's 4 people. I
Oh,
think
okay.
some lenders, people think in generally is 2. I've had this question before. I think the average is normally about 2 or 3, but I have to be honest. I think it might go up to 4.
Okay.
But I think there are some lenders who might allow that from the top of my head, because I remember I was asked this question, or someone had this issue years ago or not too long ago. In general, it's normally 2 people, but I'm sure there might be scenarios. I think there might be some lenders who might go more than 2 people on a mortgage, but generally it's 2. But I think you might go up to 4. But I can't give you an answer certainly. I have to be honest with you. But it's a question I've come across before.
That just popped in my head, and I was thinking, because you said you talked about total income
Family
of
members, people
couple.
coming together, yes.
Yeah, and I had
Yes.
that. I needed to ask this
Maybe I can look into it, and I can
next
address it in the next session.
part.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any question I might, because I'm always careful not to give wrong
Thank you.
information. So I can go and look into it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Sister Gladys says, is there any other means you can use to buy? I think she said you've answered the question already. All right. Okay. All right. So like I said, my final question is what is your final word for those who are looking to buy a home? What would you advise them to do? Would you say start doing? Or if they're looking maybe in the next 1 year, or they have a target, they have a focus, or maybe they are still in school and they're thinking, I want to start doing something about my vision of buying a home in the next 1 year or 2 years, what would you advise them to start doing?
The very first thing I'll ask them to do is start tapping into. I'm not sure if it's still around, but I think so. The help to buy ISA.
Okay.
There's that help to buy ISA. I'm not sure if it's still on. It might be. I'm not 100% sure. But there used to be what we call the help to buy ISA. This is where the government is like an ISA where you can save up. It's individual savings account. You can save up to buy a house. So you put some money in, the government put some money in. It's to help. It's to encourage young people or people who have never bought their own property. So you look into that. Help to buy. That's a good way to start saving towards a house. Whatever you saving, I think there's some limits. I don't know if it's 4 grand. I'm sorry, I don't have all these figures here, but I think there's a limit which you can put in. Yeah. Okay, so
the government website.
It's ended. Yeah. It's ended. Yeah,
As it?
yeah, you can't open a new one then. That's why I thought. I said it's gone now. But they
Oh,
used to
yeah.
make
Yeah.
that. So there used to be a help to buy ISA where you put some money in, the government puts some money in as well. And you can build a deposit. So it helps you to build up a deposit for the future to buy a house. But unfortunately, I
Sorry.
think it's now
Sorry. Did you say it has? It doesn't look like it has ended because I can see.
it says, look, if you go down, scroll down, it says you can no longer open a help to buy ISA.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I didn't see that.
It talks about people who already have it. I
Yeah.
knew.
I was just looking
I
at
think it's
this.
closed. That's why I wasn't sure. When I started talking, I said I'm not sure if it's still around. But
Mm,
okay. But anyway, if you haven't got the help to buy ISA, try to start saving.
okay.
I would think what I would advise as a money mentor, what I tell people is that one, try to start looking at your income and expenditure. Start trying to put something aside.
Hmm.
There's a strategy I call pay yourself first. Pay
Hmm.
yourself first means that most people decide with okay, I'll spend all my I'll have my income, I'll deduct, and then whatever is left is what I will save. That's not the way. What you do is that you decide, okay, I want to save. It's a strategy, but it works. You might say, okay, I want to start saving a certain amount every month towards my deposit. Maybe I want to save £200 a month. So let's say you're earning 1.5. This is just an example. So you just 200. So once your salary hits your account, 1,005, that £200, you just take it out and you just maybe have a standing order. It goes into another account. It just goes. And then whatever is left is what you live on. You manage on that.
Hmm.
That's
Okay.
discipline. That is one of the strategies we learned because so that way you start putting money aside. So when you start saving money, you have to start putting whatever it is. Don't be deterred that I need to save 20, 50,000. Or you start from somewhere. If it's £200, if it's £100, just start from somewhere because that amount can go towards something. Even if it's paying for your solicitors or paying for something. So start
Hmm.
saving up. Affordability, what advice for people? So you start to save up. That's the first thing. Two, you need to also start doing some research in terms of where you want to live.
Yeah.
These areas, what are house prices in the area? What in terms of that, what is affordable? You look at that. You look at the areas you want to live, how house price in that area. One other thing you can also do, speak to a mortgage. So once you can go speak to a mortgage broker. Sometimes the advice is free. They can say that okay, if you're looking to buy a certain property, this is how much you will need as deposit. This is how much mortgage you will need. This is how much income you need to earn. So by now you already know all these figures. It might take you 2 years, it might take you a year, it might take you 3 years, it might take longer, but at least you start doing all this research. So you
Hmm.
know how much you need. So it gives an idea what you need to buy, where you need to buy, how much it's going to cost you. The other thing is your credit as well. Look
Hmm.
at your credit. Make sure you have a good credit. Make sure your credit is not messed up. Be careful how you manage your finances. And thanks. That's my money mentor page. Yeah. So I used to run some of these web seminars. I've not done them for a couple of years now. But I used to have people where I bring them in financial awareness. We used to talk about money management and stuff like that. So yeah, so your credit, make sure your credit is good. Make sure you don't miss your money, you miss your any payments. Just look after your credit. Try to run your affairs really well because what you don't want is to save up and then when it's time for you to get a mortgage, you're not able to get a mortgage because you've missed your credit card payment or you haven't paid your mobile phone bill or something like that. You don't want that to mess you up in terms of your credit. Yeah, but so that is what I would advise. But so going back to what I said, start putting some money aside. Whatever it is, just start putting anything aside. Use
Hmm.
pay it first mode. The strategy I call pay it yourself first.
Okay.
Start with that, and then do some research on where you want to buy. What areas you want to buy a property, how much your price is in that area. Don't be deterred. If you see something and it says, I know, you can still get on the property ladder. Now, also, the biggest challenge for most people is affordability.
Hmm.
I mentioned that during my last session. being able to afford, because you want to buy in London, especially, they say house prices are so much. But some people are so determined that they want to buy the house. They're ready to take certain steps. I'll give you an example. In my own case, I remember the very first time I wanted to buy a property, I couldn't afford to buy in London. This is about 20 years ago, over 20 years ago. I couldn't afford to buy. So I had to move further out. I moved, believe it or not, I moved to Luton. And now I'll tell you one thing. From Luton to London, what I was paying for the travel fare was the same as my mortgage payment. But it was cheap, at the time. It's a low, this 20 over 20 years ago. So it was cheap there. But it could be that you might not be able to afford within the vicinity where you live. You might need to move a bit further out, to the outskirts where house prices are cheaper. Fine, it might have to cost you more money to travel, but at least you put your foot on that ladder. It depends on how important or how passionate it is to you, how important it is to you to buy your first home. Some people believe they want to stay within a certain vicinity and they'll prepare to rent. That's up to them. But some people are so determined that they want to buy and are prepared to move further out, to buy. So that is it. So that is one of the things. And also, you can consider all the various options. During my first session, I mentioned all the various options to buy in a house. I mentioned help to buy. I mentioned shared ownership. I mentioned buying outright. So all these are different options you can based on your individual circumstances. So don't be deterred. Don't be deterred. But you need to decide, okay, I want to buy a house. Start doing your research. And then whatever information is out there, try to do your research and speak to a mortgage advisor, and then they'll be able to advise you a bit further.
Okay.
I see there's a question from
Yes. Sister Gladys is saying, are there disadvantages when about 4 people buy a house together?
Now, I have to be honest, I said I was going to answer that. I'm not sure, I'm going to qualify my response because obviously I have to check whether it's possible for people to buy a house together. I'm not 100% sure. It's possible. I'm not 100% sure. I have to be honest with you. But if it is possible, the major disadvantage I would think is when people fall out. Because if you're all buying, if you're, having 4 people on a mortgage, it's people and life changes. Today, people might say, I want to move away, and stuff like that. And then what means that if somebody wants to leave, what happens with one of them who wants to leave? Will you then have to sell the house to pay off one of that person? Or would you have to pay off that person? That is the problem. Because what happens is when you're buying a property together as a group, you need to share the same kind of aspirations. You have to have a plan in place. And then, okay, we're buying it. So sometimes, okay, let's say we're buying this house together today. Even husband and wife, people split up. People go their separate ways, or people life priorities changes. You have all that. So the question is those that I would think are the disadvantages, because that means you have to have a heart-to-heart talk from the onset that, okay, if we are going to be doing this, we have to do it for the next 5 years. You have to have some time scale. Because what you don't want is someone buy a house with you, and then in 6 months' time, they say, oh, I'm not interested anymore. I want to move to Manchester. I want to move to Liverpool or something like that. Fine. If they want to move, that's fine, as long as you continue paying the mortgage. But if that person says, I want my own share of that house, then it becomes tricky, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that is, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, just to add to that, I think maybe yes, we might say, oh, my best friend or my partner or my this, but having it legally binding, having something legal, a contract, draw up a contract so that if that happens, you know what to do, rather than waiting till it happens.
Yeah,
That's what I
but
would say.
even there, Bumi, the problem is that even if you have a contract, because look at it this way, even couples split up.
Yeah.
And that's contract. Husband and wife buy property together. Tomorrow they split up, they have to sell. So it's either husband or wife or husband, one of them will have to pay the other person off, or they have to sell the property, and people so all this is part of life. It's a life thing. You can't plan for every eventuality. But this is just the disadvantages. It's just that, like, but as you said, Bumi, I think from the onset is make sure there's legal stuff as much as possible. Put all the legal protection in place. Also, you have to do stuff with like-minded people. People that at least I know people's priority changes in life, but you need to decide what you really want and have some kind of, I don't know, maybe it might even be possible to have some agreements. I don't know whether it's possible. Just like you said, Bumi, saying something that, okay, we will not be able to sell or do this within the next couple of years or something. Maybe some kind of agreement. Because what you don't want is to buy a house together and then one person decides, oh, I'm no longer interested, or or something. But most time it's family members who do stuff together. I guess in this case it might be the parents and the child, or the mother or father with the children or something buying the house together.
Yeah.
The question is that when the child then decides, I want to go off on my own, I want to do my own thing. So that is the main thing. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Sister Gladys. Thank you for that. You're welcome.
Okay. Thank you so much. We spent so much time here, fruitful time. I really appreciate your precious time shared with us tonight. Thank you to all those online, those watching, those who will watch eventually. And I can't but just thank you. I know I can't thank you enough for sharing this precious time with us. So thank you, and thank you again, Mr. Abudu. So we're going to be having our next, that's like a wrap-up session, touching on some buzzwords, some words that maybe people have not thought about. Maybe they go watch this again and they feel, oh yeah, I should have asked that question. Please ask the questions and it would be answered for the next session, which is the final, well, maybe it's the final session, we don't know, but hopefully.
Yeah, our final thing keeps changing, so you never know.
Yeah, the finally keeps changing, yeah.
Well, I'm happy. I love doing the, I have to be saying, Bumi, like I said, like the last time, I would say big, I would say good for you, what you're doing. God bless you. You're doing what you're doing is great. And I'm always here. I love talking about these issues. I'm very passionate about home ownership, about our community, people owning their own house. Because, like I said to you, Bumi, once when we spoke, I said, even if your house doesn't go up in value, the fact that you in retirement, you own your own house, you're not paying rent to anybody, it's a big thing. So I'm saying that's why I encourage people, because it's a no-brainer. When you're old, when you're elderly, sorry, not old. When you're, when you get on in life, what you don't want is in your 60s or 70s be paying rent to anybody. It'll be good for you to own your house. Even if the house price hasn't even gone up. Let's say you just paid off your mortgage and you've owned your own property. And then if you pass away, you have something to give to your children. And your children are not starting from scratch. So that alone is something. So that means, and I'm always happy to come on anytime to share my ideas, to share my little knowledge I have. And so I enjoy being here and I'm looking forward to the next session. But thanks for having me on the show. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. And I'll say thank you very much for being here. We have come to the end of the show and we are hoping that you're going to write more comments, more questions. Go and dig them out. Somebody must have asked you a question in the past and you're like, I'm not sure about that. This is a time for you to ask. Next week, by His grace, we will be here again to do a finishing touches on some of the buzzwords we have been talking about in the past, about mortgages, right to buy, everything you can think of regarding buying your own home. So make sure you share, like, subscribe, and comment down below. So thank you very much for this, Mr. Abudu. I really appreciate you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
So thank you, viewers. Please remember, again, like, share, subscribe. I can't say enough. And share the video with someone, even students, youths who are, maybe they have 2 years to start thinking of buying a home. Share with them. Let them start getting understanding of what they need to start doing at the moment. So thank you very much for being here. I really appreciate your attendance. God bless you and have a beautiful night. Bye-bye.